The world of Cyberpunk captivates me. The architecture, the culture of the megacorps versus the rebellious anti-authority, the underlying lawlessness, and those vibrant neon lights. There's something so mesmerizing about it. The over-exaggerated ads you see on every building, sometimes it's something I wish I could see in real life. CD Projekt Red has created a world for all of us to experience, a world that draws you in and keeps you immersed in it. As a long-time fan of CD Projekt Red, my journey began with The Witcher 3, a game that set the bar for immersive storytelling and expansive open worlds. And of course, I've played many other titles as well. I've explored through the vast land of Skyrim, I've saddled up on my horse and explored the beautiful Red Dead Redemption 2, and I've tested out my combat skills against some of the hardest bosses I've ever faced in Elden Ring. Each game has left a permanent mark on my gaming experience, but none have quite sparked my imagination quite like Cyberpunk 2077. CD Projekt Red has crafted a universe for us all to explore, a living, breathing world that draws you in and keeps you captivated. But it wasn't always like this. Behind the neon glow lies a rocky development journey, filled with challenges and obstacles that would test the resilience of any studio. On the 10th of December 2020, the anticipation for Cyberpunk had finally come to a halt. The release was finally here, and the fans could not be more excited. Everybody knew the ability that CD Projekt Red had, with their previous title The Witcher 3 being one of the greatest games of all time. However, when the day of December 10th came, misery was soon to follow. Cyberpunk easily had one of the worst launches in gaming history, with numerous bugs making the game completely unplayable at times. It was rushed out in an unfinished form after several days to appease shareholders, despite the development team being heavily crunched and making it clear the game was not ready. And more time had been spent creating flawless virtual slices for press and influencers than actually ensuring it worked. Cyberpunk 2077 was the most successful flop of all time. Within weeks of launch, the RPG had sold 13 million copies, even accounting for dissatisfied players refunding the game. It made its 8-year budget back in a single day, yet it felt like the game was dead before it even started. People's opinions were already set in stone, and there seemed to be no way back. The last-gen console version was so bad that it was pulled from sale on PlayStation. Some investors were so miffed at how CD Projekt Red handled the launch, they filed a class action lawsuit over the share price, which had dropped from its high of $31 on December 4th, 2020 to only $16 a month later. The reputation of Cyberpunk was unfixable. It was memed, laughed at, and looked down upon. With CD Projekt Red taking numerous hits from fans and critics, it felt like they were in a hole with no way out. To provide you with some more context to the situation that CD Projekt Red were going through at the time, let me share this timeline with you. On December 12th, CD Projekt Red patched a braindance visual effect that had triggered a seizure in a Game Informer journalist. On December 17th, Sony actually pulled Cyberpunk from the PlayStation Store, offering everyone full refunds. Such a surprising reversal for a major release. On December 27th, a class action lawsuit was filed against CD Projekt Red, alleging materially false and misleading statements on the last-gen console quality that led to investor loss. Bear in mind, these are the same investors that actually forced CD Projekt Red to rush the game, so you're going to have to work that one out for yourself. Then on January 13th, CD Projekt co-founders issued a public statement titled Cyberpunk 2077, Our Commitment to Quality, offering a personal account of the game's troubled launch, especially on older consoles. But then it doesn't get any better, because on February 7th, hackers breached CD Projekt Red systems, threatening to leak source code for Cyberpunk 2077, The Witcher 3, Gwent, and some internal files, claiming this would further damage the studio's reputation and investor confidence. Then we go 3 days later to February 10th, and the hackers begin leaking code, starting with Gwent, after CD Projekt Red refused to negotiate. CDPR responded with DMCA takedowns to limit the spread. Then on March the 22nd, the lead game designer for Cyberpunk 2077 actually departs from CD Projekt Red after an 8-year tenure. On March 29th, things started to take a turn for the better. The major 1.2 patch was released and heavily focused on over 500 bug fixes. I could go on, but I think this provides you with some perspective of what happened. You can see there was a lot of pressure on CD Projekt Red in these times, from the media backlash to literally being hacked, but thankfully things did get better. Towards the end of that timeline, I spoke about bugs being fixed, and well, that kept going. CD Projekt Red kept fixing Cyberpunk, honing in on the in-game mechanics and fixing everything that should have been done before launch. It was never the fact that CD Projekt Red made a terrible game, it was the fact that their hand was forced due to pressure from shareholders. That led to this entire disaster in the first place. But the problem was that Cyberpunk's reputation was tarnished. It was going to take a lot to get players drawn in. and at the time, I was pretty bitter about it. When I did my first real playthrough of Cyberpunk, it was actually at the very start of this year. I had tried to play it on my PC at launch, but obviously due to what went on, I just decided to leave it and forget about it. To be truthful, I slandered the game and I didn't really care for it just purely because of how disappointed I was with it. I had started to see posts by other content creators and just people in general that the game had improved. I'd even heard some people say that it was one of the greatest games they have ever played. I laughed at those comments, and I probably even commented some sarcastic hate jokes on the posts purely because I was bitter and I did not forgive CDPR for letting me down. With The Witcher 3 being my favourite game of all time, I wanted to experience a game from them again that made me feel like The Witcher did. As months turned to years, I kept seeing these positive comments about the game, and as I grew older, I suppose I became less bitter. And when I become less bitter, I become more optimistic about playing the game. What if I listened to these comments? What if they're right about the game? So I bought the game on my Xbox this time and played it, and the people were right. And I'm going to be telling you why the people were right for the rest of this video. Night City itself is bittersweet, a beautiful city created by Richard Knight that is incredible to look at. The bright lights, the fancy cars, the flying taxis, there's nothing more that you could want in a futuristic dystopian world. However, there are no happy endings in Night City after all. This is the kind of place that will eat you up and swallow you whole. The city is run by megacorps, Arasaka, Militech. The corrupt corps make for a fantastic enemy, almost like that impossible enemy that you'll never really be able to truly conquer. To quote the Cyberpunk wiki, the Arasaka Corporation is a worldwide megacorporation dealing in corporate security, banking and manufacturing. That's a lot of corporates. It is one of the most influential megacorporations in the world. Arasaka branded weapons and military vehicles are among the most sought after by the police and security firms. Over the years, it has developed a dark reputation as a corporation that is to be feared, and one which covers its tracks using assassins, an army of lawyers, as well as an alleged connection to the Yakuza. As well as Arasaka, you have Militech. To quote the wiki again, Militech is a megacorporation specializing in weapons manufacturing and private military contracting. Militech is one of the world's largest manufacturers of weapons and military vehicles, with facilities on every continent. Although these megacorps basically have free reign over the city, it is still plagued by scum and violence from other smaller gangs. Animals, Maelstrom, Tiger Claws, the Voodoo Boys, or the Aldecados, that's just to name a few. They are some of the gangs that you can encounter in your journey throughout Cyberpunk. It's a pretty dangerous environment to be in, one where you feel like if you took the wrong turn in most of the streets in Night City, that it could be the last street you walk in. But this only added to the aura of the city. This visual of a city of opportunity and danger. A city that at times seemed like it was against you, and a city where there was high risk and high reward. This is something that us fans had never seen before, and may likely never see again. The effort that was put into the city and the map as a whole to truly make you feel immersed in it was second to none. The Badlands, City Centre, Haywood, Pacifica, Santo Domingo, Watson, Westbrook and Dogtown. Each area of the Cyberpunk map is incredible, each having its own identity and purpose. Each area has a different feel, a different culture to its neighbour, with the different gangs taking claim to each of these places. The area specific quests you can do for each fixer really allows you to gain more perspective into the culture and sometimes violence that really transpires in these districts. Generally just exploring these areas, you would find something either really interesting or shocking, however you want to look at it. For me, the most shocking thing I found in terms of exploration was in the Badlands, where I stumbled upon a pond of blood for the very first time. My brain was ticking, I wanted to know more, but couldn't find anything in the area. The sense of urgency yet mystery that came with it was so compelling that it became a common thing for this game. You could go online and read up about so many different bizarre things that people had found during their playthroughs.
This ain't my lucky day.
It's incredible, and at the time this was so refreshing to me to have seen people go through these experiences for the first time just like I did.
That's enough risk for one day.
What have you done? You're in my clinic! That was my patient!
But the greatness did not end with the exploration, it was the gigs as well. For gigs in particular, I was a huge fan of one of the newer ones in the Phantom Liberty DLC. It was named the Talent Academy gig. This was truly an experience in gaming that made me feel sick to my stomach, and I had to think a hard, long while on what should be the correct choice.
That you want.
Want to burn this place to the fucking ground. A to the fucking men.
Speaking of gut-wrenching gigs, I'm sure many of you are familiar with Dirty Biz. The voice acting in this gig was absolutely incredible. It was so good that it actually had me regretting my decision despite how disgusting the people were.
No! Freddy! Frederick! Answer me right now!
Putting gigs to the side, I enjoyed every single minute of the main story quests that I was playing with Goro in particular. He was brilliant as a character and someone you would warm up to the more you played.
Look. Like shit.
So many shocks, so many twists, so many turns went on during this game that I couldn't put the controller down at times. Even now, after I've played every ending I possibly can, almost completed every single achievement, and have played the game to the fullest, I still stumble across things that I've never seen before, that I can search up online after and find a vast list of people sharing their theories and own experiences about it. I just mentioned how much I like Goro as a character, but now it's time I think that I give some other characters their flowers and talk about why I think they are great additions in the game and why they are just so captivating. I've never played a video game that has characters like this that have made me feel so immersed into the world. From the relationship you have with Jackie at the start, a longtime friend that you finally make it into the big leagues with, or to have it taken away in a flash. The small time that you're with Jackie, CD Projekt Red did a stellar job of establishing the bond between you and him. Although we don't experience many moments with him in game, when we lose Jackie it really hits deep. I found it so impressive that CD Projekt Red managed to make us care so much about Jackie with the little time we had with him. The loss of Jackie really helped set the tone of the game, and Night City in general, an unforgiving city that does not show mercy to anyone. As you progress through the game, you meet various characters with phenomenal layers of complexity and depth to them. Characters like Panam Palmer, for example. Panam is more than just a romance option. As you journey through Cyberpunk with Panam, you can see how the relationship between her and V develops throughout the game. It isn't just a case of playing one quest with her and being able to romance her, it's a long cycle of complexity and various character traits that adds that real immersion to the experience. The quest lines that Panam gives you, as well as the other romanceable characters, are up there with some of the best content in the game as well. So as well as Panam, you meet various characters throughout your journey that really blow you away with their complexity and depth, as well as the fantastic quests they actually provide you with. One that will always stand out for me is the Paralysis side quests and the characters that are involved in there. How mind-blowing and trippy their questline was will never leave my brain, and I still have questions and thoughts pop up into my head every once in a while just randomly thinking about it. I know this entire section is meant to be based off the characters, but I don't want to main too many and then leave someone out, because I really feel like I'm disservicing them and the stories they take us through. But of course there is one man I absolutely cannot not mention, that being Johnny Silverhand. When you first meet Johnny, when he's confused and stuck in your brain, you more than likely wanted him 6 feet under, although he technically already was. Johnny was not a nice guy. Maybe some of you guys liked him straight off the bat, but for me, it took a little warming up.
How the fuck should I know? The fuck kind of droid toy are you supposed to be? Fucking ghost off!
The choices throughout the game that you make can really influence your relationship with Johnny, to a point where at the end of the game you could have one of the most heartfelt endings you can imagine, or he can just entirely betray you. Johnny is the most complex character in gaming. His perception of the world around him is so hate-driven, and it blinds him. From losing Alt to Arasaka, to being defeated by Adam Smasher, what's left of Silverhand inside your head is a broken, bitter man, who wants nothing more than to see the world burn. Johnny is irrational, impulsive, and a manipulator. Before you know him, he's greedy. He disregards other people's feelings and routinely puts his friends in harm's way to further his cause. He claims to be fighting for his ideals, but it really seems like he's just in it for his own ego. Yet, you can't help but warm up to each other in the end. Throughout your long journey, throughout every experience you share together, V gets more of an understanding of Johnny, and I'd like to think Johnny of V. I sometimes like to think that this isn't a story about V. Cyberpunk is about Johnny. It's more Johnny Silverhand's story, and I'm okay with that. And to continue with Johnny Silverhand, I want to talk about something that I don't see many people cover. That is Samurai, Johnny Silverhand's band. All music created for Samurai is done by Swedish band Refused. Samurai is a legendary chromatic rock band featured throughout the Cyberpunk series. for whom music was a way to rebel against corporations. If you take a look at each of the songs, each song is a story about Johnny's life. The extent that CD Projekt Red went to truly immerse you into the game is actually shown right here. I'm going to go through some examples of theories that people have come up with about Samurai's music that you could relate to either Johnny or V, but mostly I'd like to think it's about Johnny. The song Never Fade Away is a direct response to Johnny losing Alt, paying the price, as said in the song, for his actions. Or you could see Never Fade Away as Silverhand's manifesto. His hatred for Arasaka is deeply personal. The fact that Arasaka Tower is still memorialized feels like a dig at him. Since he wanted his passion, their love, to never fade away, the reason he still gets emotional listening to it is because through V, he sees that things do fade away. He's not just a rebel against a corpse, but against nature, and in the ways that matter to him, he's lost. Or you could even relate the song to V, that being us. A thing of beauty will never fade away can be seen as a reflection on the meaning of what we do, what we create, the story our life tells. It's reflecting the question Dex asked us in the beginning. No matter if it's a blaze of glory destined to end, if there's beauty in it, there is worth that will stay beyond. As well as this, the music is actually really good. I'll give you my top 3. Like a Supreme at 3, Black Dog at 2, and number 1 has to be Never Fade Away. Sorry to all of the chipping in fans out there. Samurai was just one of the many things that CD Projekt Red did so well that just added to the immersion of this game. Going out of their way to make these lyrics really mean something in depth towards Johnny's character, and these are the kind of details that you want and look for in a game. These are the kind of details that keep you hooked and unable to stop playing. But speaking of immersion, I want to talk about some of the ways which Cyberpunk really brings you into the world. Cyberpunk truly pushes the boundaries of immersion with unparalleled attention to the essence of Night City, weaving every element into a complex, vivid dystopian reality. The game's use of in-world music, like the rebellious raw sound of the band Samurai I just mentioned, pulls you into the punk culture and the chaos of cyberpunk society. The characters as well, each with distinctive personality quirks and layered stories, are unforgettable in their depth. Characters like Judy, Panam, and Jackie practically leap from the screen, each demanding hours of attention and drawing players back into the game repeatedly. But true immersion in Cyberpunk goes beyond just the characters and plot. It's the smallest details that help. For example, the slang that is scattered throughout the city, words like chum meaning friend, chrome a reference to body enhancements in cyberware, delta as in to escape or run away, and eddies, the currency of Night City. This kind of slang infuses everyday conversations. This in-world language isn't just a gimmick, it serves as an immediate reminder that this isn't just any futuristic city. Night City's language makes it feel that you've crossed into an alien, yet oddly familiar world. And through these details, the city and its lore becomes deeply embedded, making you feel a part of the chaotic, morally ambiguous world. Now I'm sure many of you have heard these slangs before, things like chum and eddies, but did you hear it in Cyberpunk the game first, or Cyberpunk Edgerunners? Cyberpunk Edgerunners deserves a special mention, not just reviving interest in Cyberpunk, but for almost single-handedly rehabilitating its reputation in my opinion. For someone like me who's not really a massive fan of anime to be honest, this series was a revelation. I didn't expect to get hooked. Yet this anime brought Life City to life in a way that made me feel even more connected to the world of Cyberpunk. It wasn't just the art style or the action, it was the dark, gritty narrative that made me see this world through a whole new lens, yet bringing me back to the reality of what Night City truly is. Edgerunners explored the cyberpunk universe, pulling me in with a unique, deeply emotional story about ambition, tragedy, and sacrifice. It was an unapologetic exploration of Night City's brutal reality. David's relentless drive, his refusal to heed Lucy's pleas to take the easy way out. It wasn't just a plotline, it was a commentary on the unforgiving, ambition-fueled mindset of those who try to make a name for themselves in this dystopian future. David became a tragic symbol of ambition gone wrong, a young man pulled into a life where his very soul is on the line. His journey resonates deeply because it's about a struggle many of us can recognise, pushing for greatness whilst ignoring the dangers that lie in the pursuit. Lucy, on the other hand, personified the voice of caution, a survivor who understood the price of unchecked ambition. Their dynamic reflected the harsh lessons that Night City teaches its residents. A common occurrence during this series was a huge emphasis on cyberpsychosis, which I absolutely loved. Cyberpsychosis is the tale of what can happen to those who let this city's seductive, tech-driven promises consume them, chroming themselves out top to bottom. It gets to their mind and completely fries their brain. Edgerunners made cyberpsychosis feel real, not just a concept, but as an existential threat looming over everyone in the city. What if it was you that ran into one of these maniacs? What if you ran into someone who practically turned themselves into a cyborg with a mind that is not their own? It was a concept that was really well expanded on, and I really appreciated the time they put into showing us what cyberpsychosis can truly do. The anime also brought iconic characters like Adam Smasher into the mainstream awareness. Already notorious in the game, Smasher's role in Edgerunners highlighted the terrifying extent of Huber's cybernetic obsession. He wasn't just a villain, he was the embodiment of Night City's most extreme promises, the point of no return where humanity is abandoned in favour of power and being a cyborg. Smasher's presence in the anime cast a huge shadow over David's journey, the chilling reminder of what happens when someone goes too far down the chrome-lined path. But Smasher was an anomaly. He could handle the chrome. He was able to control his feelings and emotions. And most of the time, his feelings and emotions were just about wanting to kill and destroy everything he saw. That's why he took the job after all, because he gets to take on some of the most feared opponents in the world of Cyberpunk. David Martinez, the main character we followed throughout the entire series, was nothing to Smasher. The main character just being squashed at the end of the series was great in a way. I loved it, because it was fresh, it was new. Edgerunners really helped transform Cyberpunk 2077 from a game into a fully fleshed out universe. It added layers of lore, injected new life into Night City, and gave players a deeply personal reason to explore its streets and characters. With every gritty episode, Edgerunners reinforced that ambition in Night City always comes at a cost. And I suppose that's where the notion of no happy endings in Night City really comes from. It's a sentiment that resonates deeply with the game's multiple endings. Cyberpunk 2077 is a game about choices, but here, choices don't always yield happily ever afters. They're a reflection of the incredible and tough world that CD Projekt Red has created, and this can be reflected in the game's endings. Whether you choose to escape to Arizona with the Nomads and Pan Am in hopes of finding a cure for V, or let Johnny Silverhand's personality take over your body completely. Each ending is bittersweet and at times tragic. Each conclusion feels weighted with consequences, leaving fans questioning if there was ever a right choice at all. The variety in the game's endings has fueled endless discussions, theories, and fan speculations that keep the Cyberpunk community alive. This element of mystery, the unanswered questions, and the countless interpretations are intentional moves by CD Projekt Red, who wanted the players to linger on their experience, to revisit Night City, even after the final credits roll. The idea of unfinished business, of paths that could have gone another way. This is what gives Cyberpunk its lasting power, and makes it a piece of art that invites players to explore its possibilities long after finishing the main story. I suppose you could say it truly makes Cyberpunk timeless, but how am I going to let go of a game that I love so much? I sometimes struggle to pick up or even play new games because I just keep coming back to Cyberpunk. But I suppose that's exactly what CD Projekt Red wanted. They wanted players to keep coming back, to be mesmerised by this world. Letting go of Cyberpunk isn't easy. There's something about Cyberpunk that stays with me, just pull me back time and time again. Maybe it's the unfinished stories I never fully explored, or the characters who just feel a bit too real, haunting me with their ambitions, flaws and downfalls. Maybe it's Night City itself, a setting so rich and alive that leaving it feels like saying goodbye to a place that I know like the back of my hand. It's not just a game world, it's a part of my gaming journey, a place filled with memories, and yet every time I try to step away, I find myself drawn back to its neon glow. Night City is a reminder of our own world, distorted and exaggerated of course, but painfully recognisable in its struggles and ambitions. The city's grit and gloom capture something raw, something that makes it difficult to simply move on from. CD Projekt Red crafted this universe so detailed with layers of social commentary, emotional depth, and constant conflict that Night City feels less like a game and more like a twisted alternate reality. So as I reflect on trying to let go of this game, I realise that maybe Cyberpunk isn't meant to be put down entirely. It's a game that demands to be revisited, pondered over, and kept alive in our minds long after the screen fades to black. Its legacy is more than its storylines or graphics. It's the way it leaves an imprint, subtly calling you back to the unforgiving streets of Night City, where you might leave for a while, but never truly escape.